$0 to $2,500, the financial cost of adopting each child through the foster care system. I'm your host, Marcy Bursack, and I'm on a mission. I'm on a mission to find more forever families. In fact, one for each child waiting in the foster care system. After blogging my journey adopting a pair of siblings, I realized that I knew countless people who had a desire to adopt, but believed it was too expensive. So I wrote a book for adults, The Forgotten Adoption Option. I wrote a book for children, Are You a Forever Family? And I started this podcast. I am so delighted that you are tuning in. In season 2, I'm dropping monthly episodes to teach you how to adopt those U.S. children who are waiting for you in the foster care system. You might also enjoy the personal stories of adoptive parents and adopted children that I featured in season 1. Now, whether right now feels like the right time, the process feels overwhelming, or someone quickly comes to mind to share this with, I am here for you. I am America's foster care adoption mentor, and I'm eager to help you fulfill a child's dream of having their forever family. Welcome to the Forgotten Adoption Option podcast. In this episode, you're going to learn how to find and become an adoption-friendly workplace. I am so very honored to have Rita Soronen, President and CEO of the Dave Thomas Foundation for Adoption, back on to share about adoption-friendly workplaces. You might remember in season 1, Rita shared about the opportunity to adopt and advocate for children in the foster care system. That episode you can find back on your favorite podcast platform. So welcome back, Rita.
Oh, Marcy, I am so excited to be back with you, and congratulations on everything that you've done the past few months. You are such an advocate for adoption that we're grateful to be on and honored to be on with you today.
You're so kind. It's been such a fun journey to be able to partner in more ways. To me, it's like it just kind of expands the things you've been doing for a long time. And for our listeners, I've actually never seen Rita live. Like, in fact, when I recorded the audiobook for the Forgotten Adoption Option, I wanted to be certain I said Rita's last name right. And so my audio engineer, we Googled and found her on YouTube talking and saying her name, but I've never physically been in a video chat. So this is such an honor and so delightful. But my history at the foundation, actually in 2014, when my husband and I signed up to get licensed to adopt through foster care, we really wanted to be able to have the same bonding time that many employers offered for biological children. And you might be aware of this, is called, some employers say, maternity leave or paternity leave. And my husband and I, we just wanted adoption leave. We're like, we are choosing to adopt our kids. We'd like to have time to do this. But at the time, both of our employers didn't actually officially offer anything like this. And we thought, well, could we ask? So a little internet search later, we found templates from the Dave Thomas Foundation for Adoption that we customized and that we presented to our employers, kind of hoping they'd be okay with it. And we were pleasantly surprised at the very positive response that we received from our employers to help support us through this chosen path of family expansion, which for us was adoption. So I am so excited to help our listeners be equipped to know how they too can do this and to find these employers that are so supportive of families that are choosing to adopt. So Rita, I'm eager because the foundation has trailblazed this path about the adoption-friendly workplace. So maybe we can start off with, what exactly is an adoption-friendly workplace?
Absolutely. And I always like to go back to our founder, Dave Thomas, who was adopted, created the Dave Thomas Foundation for Adoption to focus for us exclusively on foster care adoption, but in recognition and celebration of all kinds of adoption. As he was getting later in his career as the CEO of Wendy's, and it really began to think about, wait, there's something missing here. Because as a large employer, as a corporate international business, we offer benefits to families that are formed through birth. And of course, it's a health issue. So lots of, making sure that moms and dads are supported. And at that time, probably mostly moms, not necessarily dads so much in the workplace when there's a birth in the family. He said, but if we're beginning to support this notion of adoption, and specifically foster care adoption, it feels like there's something missing in our adoption benefits. Shouldn't we give recognition to families that are formed through adoption as well? And so he, on an ad hoc basis, began to talk to other corporate CEOs and said, hey, if you are giving benefits to families that are formed through birth, don't you think you should also give benefits to families that are formed through adoption? And that really was his beginning of what we've turned into a national campaign, the Adoption Friendly Workplace campaign, that simply says, as an employer, please give recognition in the workplace to families that are formed through adoption. And it can be in a number of ways. It can be, if it's a really small budget and you can't afford to give financial assistance to families, you can certainly provide the kind of flexibility and time that they need, like any other family does, for bonding with a new child in the family, no matter what their age is, particularly if it's a child that's come from foster care and needs some additional outside services, that flexibility of time to hit those services. So unpaid leave, in addition to what you may already be doing, paid leave that maybe if you're large enough, in addition to FMLA, and certainly financial assistance if you can. We know adopting from foster care is relatively inexpensive, but there are still expenses. And so whatever expenses that you can help reimburse. And that really is the essence of an adoption-friendly workplace, that you recognize with parity how families are formed, no matter how families are formed.
Which is so cool to me, because I'm thinking, as someone that got to receive that benefit, I just thought, hi, I'd like to have a little bit of a break to get settled. Which for us was more like, how do we line up childcare? My husband adopted 2 kids at once. And I know sometimes people do sibling groups, sometimes they do one at a time, but just acclimating that child or the children into your family, and like having the pause to figure out a routine and schedules and showers, like all the stuff that like abruptly overnight, especially in the foster care space. And oftentimes I have a number of friends that have adopted infants or internationally that you get the call and like you're driving or you're doing the thing, and all of a sudden your life is upside down. And so having the support of your employer to say, we get it, we want you to have that time, whatever that looks like. I'm so grateful that you all have thought through how can we make this easier? How can we make this supportive and make it fun and enriching for everyone, right? Because I feel like so many of our friends and family got to watch us do that. And while it can feel overwhelming to expand your family through adoption, there's a beauty of having one less thing to concern yourself with. It's like, okay, the employer part can pause for a minute. I can pause from my job and really focus on my family. So Rita, how long has the adoption-friendly workplace program been around? And you were mentioning that to create it, I guess, inspired by Dave Thomas, just kind of thinking about it, but can you tell us more of that story too?
Sure. And when you think about Dave Thomas, it was more than 25 years ago, even closer to 30 years ago, frankly, that Dave Thomas began that conversation. And it took us a while to think, wait, there's something in this that we can do strategically and make it an actual pillar program of the Dave Thomas Foundation for Adoption. So really, we started doing a survey, and that's how we get information on employers. We do a survey, ask them to submit what are your benefits that you have in the workplace. And that way we can continue to collect and benchmark what employers are doing. And we've been doing that for about 16 years. And then it was just about over a decade ago that we turned that into another level, which was the 100 best adoption friendly workplaces. So every year, based on the information that we get from the survey, we've now created this 100 best list. We know employers love to be on best lists, and it makes it a little bit competitive, which is phenomenal. We'll do whatever we can do to highlight the attention needed for adoption, and specifically foster care adoption. So it feels like when I say that 16 years, wow, I can't believe 16 years have gone by so quickly, but it's been an incredible journey for us to learn how to do this best. How do we approach employers? What do we do? What's the carrot at the end of the stick that makes them say, this is a really good idea, because I've got a lot of competing elements in my HR package. How could I possibly add one more thing? And so the messaging, the communication, understanding the benefits of why this is good for business.
Yeah, it is. And it's interesting you mentioned that from the HR perspective, because I know as someone that works at a company as well, there are things that attract people to want to work at different employers, whether adoption's like ever on your radar or in the future right now, like just knowing that my employer is supportive of this factor in our society is a big draw. And I think that helps probably with recruiting and retention too, because you've got employers that are like, hi, we recognize children are important and we want to make that part of the DNA of our benefits package. It's so beautiful. Okay,
and particularly now, when you think about it, workforce issues are profound right now post-pandemic. So as employees are beginning to look at this employer versus this employer, it's not just about the hard pieces of what's my salary, but it's about what do you offer? What makes you better for me as an individual to commit my time and my family time to you? And so when there's these kind of differences that make an employer family friendly, a little more flexible, a little more willing to recognize the diversity that families bring to the workplace, it becomes a really, I think, not only the right thing to do, right? This is the right thing to do, no matter what the circumstances are, but it gives a competitive edge to businesses.
Double win. It's beautiful. So let's kind of go from the company perspective then. So you mentioned some of the positives about attracting talent as an employer, why to offer these benefits, but what other additional pros are there for offering adoption benefits, whether you're a small, medium, or large company?
Well, I think that that first piece, if I know that my employer recognizes that I've got a life outside of work, of course, my first job as an employer is to we've got a job to do, we've got goals to meet, we've either got profits to make, or if it's a nonprofit, we've got goals to attend to. That's first and foremost. But when you add this to the package and really do it with intention and with heart and soul, it's not just a checklist item. This becomes something that really opens the eyes of an employer as well. Then what you begin to build is employee loyalty, a sense of retention, goodwill, productivity. If I know I'm not going to be judged because I've got to take 2 hours to get my child to an appointment, because they've just come into my home over the past couple of months. And my employer's not going to frown at me for doing that. In fact, they're going to support it through something specific in my benefits package. I'm going to stay much more committed to that employer. So that sense of retention, goodwill, loyalty, it is a competitive edge in recruiting. We've heard time and again from employees who said, I did have a choice between 2 or 3 companies. Once I saw their adoption benefit package, whether or not they were adoptive parents or whether or not they were even thinking about adopting, that says something about how this company regards its employees. So it is a competitive edge. And it just makes, for any kind of adoption, and particularly those that can be more expensive, international adoption, domestic infant adoption, if an employer is willing to provide financial benefits and foster care adoption, of course, it does make adoption more affordable, and it makes it a little bit easier for families to think about, I can do this. I can step forward because I'm working arm in arm with my employer, and I'm getting these benefits that can help make it maybe just a little bit easier in what can be a very complex, time-consuming, and frequently expensive system. And frankly, it's what Dave Thomas always said about his business, but about this package, this part of his business as well. You do things because it's the right thing to do. The bottom line is, this is the right thing to do. How do we recognize our employers, our employees as a part of a general community? And it's the community of where we work, but it's that broader community of family and safe communities and productive citizens and children, and employers have a huge role in that. We see that now in many ways across the country with businesses responding to issues. This is a positive issue that they can respond to and make a very positive statement.
Yeah, almost like a bold statement, because to me as an employee, it says, I'm going to validate that these children exist. I'm going to validate that this is an important path to take as a community. And I think what's so interesting, to me, it's a byproduct of what you just mentioned, is that being around people that have adopted, and myself having done this, what's beautiful in this space is that when you have the support of your employer to go and have the ability to be flexible in this way and spend time with your kids and even talk about your story, it breathes in a beautiful way and inspires others to say, I never thought about that, or that's so great to know because now I know someone else I can connect you with. And so I just see the reciprocal effect of, wow, we can help a lot of children by just simply talking about it and providing the ability and the space to go down this path. So cool.
Exactly. And we also, this is the main package that we promote to employers, but we also promote, think about other ways that you can incorporate this conversation of adoption into the workplace. Is it brown bag lunches? Is it an internal network of families who have adopted so that they can connect and learn from each other? Is it just having the local agencies into the organization and give a presentation about what does it mean to be a child in foster care waiting to be adopted. Here are ways that you can volunteer. Is it having the organization commit as an organization, like the Wendy's company does, to the Dave Thomas Foundation for Adoption, and find an organization that supports children and adoptive families and make it their charity of choice. So there's a whole package then that can develop around this simple act of providing more time off for a family that adopts.
Great. It's just like one seed in like this whole ecosystem. That's so brilliant. So from the view of someone who may adopt in the future, how do you see them using the adoption friendly workplace list in their lives?
So the employer can use it in a couple of ways. That, for those that do sign on, that do put information into the survey, whether or not they become 100 best adoption friendly workplace, we recognize everyone that puts benefits in the workplace that we know about, and we don't know about everyone. That's why we encourage people to sign on and give us their information. We then give badges that they can put on their website. We acknowledge them as adoption advocates or members of the 100 Best Adoption Friendly Workplace list. And what we find when we release that list, and I think it's in September, is we put it out there with our, with the PR work that we do and the marketing work that we do. But boom, they are out there putting it on LinkedIn, putting out press releases, and letting everyone know they're really proud once they realize that this is a good thing. It's the right thing to do. So they can then promote this, not only because it's good for their image, but again, they can attract employees. And it just says, here's who we are and here's what we care about as an employer. So it's great for the employer. Obviously, it's beneficial and incredible for the employee when it happens.
So as a potential employee somewhere, I can go on your website because you all have the current list, the most recent list from 2021. So I can even go and sift through that and utilize that in different ways, whether for myself or someone else, or just being aware of what incredible companies.
Exactly. And there's a toolkit there so that if, for example, as an employee, I'm in a business and I've been there for a while, or I'm brand new, or whatever it is, and I realize, wait, there are no adoption benefits in my package. I can go to the davethomasfoundation.org website /AFW, or you can find it easy enough if you don't remember the /, just go to davethomasfoundation.org. And there's a toolkit that really helps employers figure out how to do this. It's not complex. It's an easy implementation of a benefit. We've got all kinds of sample policies that others have used, and just a whole description of how do you implement adoption benefits in the workplace. And frankly, it's cost effective. I think that's really, when we talk about any of these issues, what's the return on investment? Is it cost effective? We know that there are, ups and downs in the economy, and employers struggle at times. But this is a cost-effective benefit. The bang for the buck is so much greater than they might think for those, those few employees that they do provide financial benefits to, or calculate what's the cost of extra time off. The return on investment for all those other things we've already talked about is significant, and it's really a low-cost implementation.
Makes sense. Like you said, yeah, it's totally the right thing to do. So this episode is dropping right as you're kicking off the survey for the year. So help our listeners know whether they own the business, or they work in that business. What's the process to apply to become an adoption friendly workplace?
And we want to make it as easy as possible. And if anybody hits any complexities, they can always just give us a call at 800-ASK-DTFA. But, we're so used to going online and getting things done, and we've hopefully made it really easy for folks. But if they go to our website, davethomasfoundation.org /AFW for Adoption Friendly Workplace, and they'll find the place where they can begin to register. But what they need to do is just register. You can register anytime throughout the year. The survey actually opens on May 2nd. So as soon as that survey opens, you'll get an email back that says, great, here's a link to how you can fill out the survey, and here's here's the survey. It takes a little bit of time. It's not arduous, but it takes a little bit of time to fill out that survey. You can stop at any point, come back to it, and fill it out later. So it doesn't have to be all done in one fell swoop and then submitted. Once you send that link in, you'll get confirmation that it's been done. And then if you decide, again, as we go through this process, that you want to do it again next year, all that information that you put in the first year, so we do ask people to do it annually, all that information that you put in the first year will repopulate. If there are any changes, that's really why we want to do it every year, because a lot of businesses start out at one level with paid leave or the kind of financial reimbursement. And then as they get into it, they begin to increase those. So we just want to keep track of that so we can, again, recognize those, what they do, and benchmark how businesses are doing. And it's really that simple. And then we determine that 100 best adoption friendly workplace by a specific calculation of percentages of weighting. How much is the financial reimbursement that you do? How much is the paid leave that you do? And then we calculate based on the size of the employer, because we have some fairly large employers in the list and we have really small ones. And it wouldn't be fair to a very large employer who gives this to perhaps hundreds or thousands of people, and a small employer that gives it to just a few. We weight that based on size as well.
So I'm thinking, oh, okay, I'm going to go get this link and I'm going to take it. Maybe I'm going to help my company do it, or maybe I'm in a big company and I need to get it to HR. What kinds of questions are in this survey? Because you mentioned it does take a little time. So what kinds of things should folks be prepared to answer, or to find the information to answer those questions?
Yeah, certainly just basic information about your company, where you're located, address, who's the point of contact for this? Is it the HR director? Is it someone else? Size of the business, kind of business, because we also do breakouts based on the type of industry that you're in. So we want to make sure that we get you categorized appropriately, and size. And then the basics. What is your policy for adoption benefits? If you have paid leave, what's the amount of reimbursement that you give? If you have, or what's the amount of time that you give? If you have financial reimbursement, what is that financial reimbursement? Do you differentiate? And some businesses do. With foster care in particular, we give a certain amount for anyone that adopts, but for those who adopt children with special needs, we might give an enhanced benefit, because we understand that there are more needs for that child. So do you break that out? We've now started tracking employers that give benefits to foster care parents as well, who may or may not move toward adoption, but the same needs are there, the same needs for time off and perhaps a little financial reimbursement. So we also track, do you also have benefits for the foster care parents? And it's really that simple, but it's that process of inputting all of that information. And there may be something that I'm missing, but those are the basics.
Makes sense. Yeah. And it's interesting to hear the comprehensive creativity of employers that are trying to navigate through the different aspects of how to help. And so that is so interesting. So Rita, as we kind of wrap up here, I'm curious, like in the space of recognizing, honoring, celebrating employers that are adoption friendly, what do you see as kind of the hope, the aspiration in the future of, like, I mean, you're at a top 100, like, is it going to be top 200? Are we hoping that, like, it just becomes a universal benefit? I would just love to hear your thoughts on what you're hoping to see.
Exactly. It's not unlike normalizing adoption, right? That it's just a conversation, that we celebrate families who adopt. It's not a secret. They're not other children. They're not, sort of damaged children, that these are thriving adoptive families and wonderful children. We want to normalize this as a benefit that any employer would never, they would be upset if they realized they didn't have adoption benefits in the workplace. So we want to normalize that. So yes, 100% of for-profit, not-for-profit, government, large or small, 100% of anyone that employs someone else has an adoption benefit in their package. And yeah, we've modified that list over the years, so that looking at, for example, the Wendy's company used to be at the top of the list all the time, which was phenomenal, because we wanted to celebrate that they were not only the founders, but were at the top of the list. But we also found that people said, well, if we can never get to the top of the list because Wendy's is always there, then maybe we won't apply. And so we approached our partners and said, would you mind if we put you on special status, special recognition status, but took you off the list so that others have a chance to get to the top? And they agreed immediately. So we're always looking at what are those modifications. I talked about weighting the size of the business. We hadn't been doing that a few years ago. And it was a large company that came to us and said, but wait, again, the parity isn't really there. Would you consider weighting businesses? And we said, of course, it's a brilliant idea. Why didn't we think of that? So we're always looking at those modifications. But yeah, we haven't talked about the top 200. If it gets large enough, I think that's not a bad idea, right? That breaking out by industry helps with that. and giving social media badges as recognition to anyone that signs on so that they can use that wherever they're talking about themselves, that we're an adoption advocate, we're on the Dave Thomas Foundation for Adoption, adoption friendly workplace list. If we're not on the 100 best list, that would be great. I was on an airplane the other day and I forget which airline it was, but it had a big badge on their airplane as we were walking in the door that said, this is a best place to work or something like that. I'd love it to be very visible, so that when someone walks into the door of maybe a major retailer and it says, we're the top 100 friendly workplace, we're a 100 best friendly workplace, that people that walk in the door recognize what that means. So we'll move that direction. But for now,
a great vision. I always wonder, if you offered a frame, if people would, oh, okay, that's what I do with it. I take this thing from online and do that. So a final question for you, because I'm really intrigued on the data you mentioned. So you guys are collecting all this information, you're using it to weigh and create a list. But the data, because I'm thinking, let's say I'm an employer and I'm thinking, well, what is kind of normal, or what's average, or what should I be thinking about that I don't even know to think about? Do you all furnish the data that you collect and kind of let people look at that PDF?
We do. We absolutely do. And there's lots that you can download. But here's one thing that we know. The average, if an employer offers financial assistance for adoption, the average that they offer is about $10,000 in financial assistance. That's not insignificant. And that's been on a steady increase. That's up almost 8% from 2 years ago. So again, during a very tough time when, during the pandemic, and the economy was such an unknown and so volatile, this was one thing that was not cut. And we were worried that employers might begin to cut some benefits. This wasn't cut. In fact, those kind of benefits increased. And the average paid leave that employers give hovers around 8 weeks. And this is typically over and above for those employers that qualify for FMLA, over and above FMLA. So I think we're seeing some incredible statistics. We're always happy to share that. We have benchmarks from other employers that we share. And if an employer gives us permission, then we will link employers together so that they can hear from us and believe what we say and take it maybe with a grain of salt because we've got something to promote. But if they can talk to a peer employer of their same size or same industry, or maybe even something different, then that helps, I think, cement that decision. So we're always matching employer to employer as well.
That's so innovative. And I love, even earlier, you mentioned just how flexible the foundation is and how you're thinking about how to recognize this too. So Rita, this has been very informative. I think listeners, whether they're thinking, I didn't even know this was a thing, or can my company do this? Or man, this makes it easier for me now. I now know what to do to get on the train with adoption because I thought I had these financial or employment barriers. So Rita, I appreciate in so many ways the work that you do, the foundation does, and how thoughtful and the ways that you bring our nation and our continent on board with, like you said earlier, to normalize adoption, because it should be normal. It's all over the place. We should just talk about what's going on instead of ignoring it. So thank you so much for coming on again.
Oh my gosh, it's absolutely my pleasure. And again, if anybody has any questions, the website, call us on our 800 line. We love talking to folks about how adoption can be supported in so many ways.
As a listener of the Forgotten Adoption Option podcast, you are helping raise awareness about foster care adoption and the 115,000 adoptable children in the United States. By leaving a review, subscribing, sharing, and talking about this podcast, you can help children and sibling groups find their forever family. If you'd like more information on adopting a child or sibling group through the foster care system, please visit my website, forgottenadoptionoption.com. There you will find how you can get started and even order a copy of my book for adults, The Forgotten Adoption Option, which will guide you through the entire process. You can also find my book for children of all ages, Are You a Forever Family? My books are available in paperback, audio, and ebook formats, and they might even be available at your local library. I welcome you to reach out to me with questions, comments, and your own adoption story. I would love to hear from you if you're signing up for licensing classes or to hear where you are in the foster care adoption process. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Just search for Marcy Bursack. I really appreciate you tuning in, caring, and sharing, because every child deserves a family.